Kamusta? This is the dopamine guy, Mr. ADHD himself, and you are listening to my podcast, Mr. ADHD. If you have ADHD or someone you know has ADHD or you feel like you have ADHD, then this show is for you. Kaya kinig na! So last episode, we talked about how I was diagnosed. But for today's episode, I will be talking about life after my ADHD diagnosis. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Right, with that southern accent. So that's one of my favorite lines from the movie Forrest Gump from way back 1994. One of my favorite actors, Tom Hanks, who portrayed an individual who has autism. So I'm using that line to describe how I feel and think my life has been after getting that ADHD diagnosis. So, parang chocolates, no? It's actually a mix of everything. So about feelings. First, I would say, firstly, I felt happy that finally I am getting that validation. It made things easier to understand. It made sense. A lot of things about kaya pala, this is the reason why, etc., etc. So I would say I felt validated as any other person who would feel unsure of himself or herself, and then getting an assurance or at least a finality or a label to something. I would say that's validating. It felt free, or gave me freedom. And happy, definitely. But on the other side, that made me sad. Sad and more of what if mas na-diagnose na maaga? What if intervention was made early on? Then it could have brought differences to what my life could have been. But at the end of it all, I think the positive feelings superseded the negative feelings. So it just made me realize that I'm thankful more than anything that it was definitely the answer that I'm looking for. Now, in terms of questions, definitely there were a lot. Nandun yung, who am I? What do I do? What are the things that are real, or what are the things that are me? And what are the things in my life that are because of ADHD? And also those questions ng mga what ifs and realizations, kaya pala, etc., etc. And to this day, I think it's still a work in progress. I remember a month or a few weeks after that diagnosis, I got confused. And I really felt that it's difficult sorting out which is which is me, which is my condition. But thankfully, with the help of people around me and things I learned from people going through the same thing, and of course the internet, the various clinical and educational resources, I came to accept that I am my ADHD, and it is a part of me. It makes me who I am. So I may have this condition, but it doesn't mean that I am that condition. At the end of it all, I am still in control. And I think early on I was in that stage where I was thinking of ano nga ba ang totoo sa mga nangyayari sa akin. Was it because of my condition or was it me? But after a while I gave up. I just realized that there's no sense in defining, in trying to explain what am I, who am I. It was like I was just looking for an excuse, an explanation for me to act differently and to act out what my symptoms and manifestations were. But yun nga, tulad ng sinabi ko, at the end of it all, I am who I am. I am what I am, warts and all. And the sooner the better that we accept the facts of life, the facts of this condition, the more that we will be able to cope and live a normal life, so to speak. So, right? So, remember your purpose of having that diagnosis or getting diagnosed is for you to understand what's going on, and after understanding what's going on is learning how to cope with that condition. And that would make the difference, instead of just telling yourself that because of this condition you are like this and you're acting out. But it will make a difference if we really accept who we are, what we are capable of, what we are not capable of, and start working from there. And again, like I said, just like you, I am a work in progress. I have a long way to understanding this condition, and I know it's difficult, really. But I hope that in one way or another, by listening to this podcast, it will help you feel that you're not alone, and other people are going through the same. Sorry about that. That was a rather long emotional barf. And I hope I made sense. But moving on, let's continue about ADHD manifestations or presentations and symptoms. Now, like I mentioned before, mine was a late diagnosis, so it's more of a retrospection. how was I when I was a kid? How was I when I was in school, elementary, high school, in college, and in work, and now? So let's take a trip down the memory lane. Sandali lang naman to, since we're just talking about 20 years or so. Naks. Liars. Anyway. Okay, as a kid, siguro magtataka kayo how I would remember. Well, one thing's for sure, I have a very good memory, at least of the past. But my working memory, which we will talk about probably sooner, is different. But my it's like defining my read-only memory and my random access memory. The ROM, it's there. It's my memories are intact from childhood until now, but my random access memory is kind of whack. And again, that's one of the hallmarks of ADHD or having ADHD. So going back, as a kid, I think I was quiet, but I know I'm smart. I was smart. I am smart. Even until now, I would say, nakasyabang. But it's more on, I would say, although I was a loner, a quiet kid, when it comes to, you know, school, knowing about the parts of a flower, the continents of the world, I know those. And like I said, I am a very smart kid, but internally I know I am different. I don't enjoy the things that that other kids my age enjoy. So I have the tendency to be just by myself, no? Nandun ako sa tabi, probably enjoying a scene or a frog or reading a book. But that was me. And growing up, I was not the typical kid. I think I was more of hyperactive in the sense na hindi madaldal, mahiyain but makulit or magulo. I remember being labeled as clumsy or a klutz kasi mahilig akong makabasag ng mga pinggan or ng baso. And I'm the kid that you don't like to be with, especially if you're going through china and glassware sa department store, because one way or another I will break them or masasanggi ko sila, or I don't know. And growing up, there was a phase in my childhood that I know I was makulit. I remember having little accidents like falling from the second floor of a house, injuring myself many times, mauuntog sa railing ng bintana, and alam mo yun, duguan and with all the stitches. I also am the type of kid na uuwi na nahulog sa kanal o nadula sa tae or bumangga sa pader, so may sugat, and also I'm that kid. I also remember that I like going climbing stuff like stairs, trees, mga kisames. So I have the knack of, you know, going anywhere, somewhere, medyo risky. So in a way that explains probably my hyperactivity state during that time. But I know for a fact, because of that, medyo napagalitan, napagsasabihan, and napapalo, of course, dahil nga makulit. So I changed and shifted my hyperactivity to something internal. That's something that's not apparent. And because of that, I know that I'm different. I know that I get ridiculed because of the things that I do, I say. I became a loner, but at some point I really felt again different. But I also developed that low self-esteem and social anxiety. And there was a time in my elementary days that I felt like I was bullied. But looking back, I don't see that it was a form of bullying. It's just me thinking about my reactions to people, especially those that are loud, that are boisterous, mayayabang. Because I'm the other way. I'm the opposite, right? I'm sensitive and quiet and all. But at some point, I grew up and learned that, I'm smart. And since I'm smart, I can be at the top of my game. And if I'm an achiever, people will not be looking at me differently. So that was my way of coping, at least when I was a kid. I made sure that, and also I am a nerd. I enjoy studying and learning facts and collecting information. So that helped me. I was an A student in elementary and high school, I would say. I was very active in school, very active both in extracurricular activities, and I got good grades. I graduated with honors. I was the top of my class, both in elementary and high school. But in college, I think that's where it started. I had problems with school and my finances, and that led me to working and studying at the same time. But after that, I know for a fact that I am insecure. There's a lot of myself, a lot of things that I see that I want for myself, but I don't have. So, alam mo yun, so that insecurity, that self-esteem, despite being an achiever, that was affected me all through my life. So my presentations then were very hyperactive to very meek in high school. Although I would say I was very personable and very loud. I know for a fact deep inside I was not happy that it wasn't me. It's affecting me big time. So, and that made me realize also a lot of things about what I am now or how I am coping now. Okay, so this is going a long time, I think, but that's it. I would say that I was hyperactive when I was a kid. At some point, I developed and coped to be not so hyperactive anymore since I was reprimanded for being makulit and kiti-kiti. And I learned to cope and to mask my symptoms, my shortcomings, and I think that's how I roll in school. Although I know for a fact that there was procrastination involved. Oftentimes, I work on my assignments during wee hours of the night or the day before the submission or the night before submission. So that's how I think I survived school. But again, work is different, right? So work naman, that is, I think, where I had the most problems with. Okay, now let's talk about work. Like I mentioned, this is the part of my life that I had most challenge with. This is very different. This does not just involve, studying and grades. It involves people, and different people means different complexities, different attitudes, different reactions. So I think ito yung pinaka-challenge ko. I think the part of me is still there. That part of me rather, being insecure is one of the reasons why I did not do well in work, at least. But this time, my coping mechanism in at work, it's more on people pleasing. This is what you want, this is what I give you. So this is I'm expected to be like this, so I will be like this. And I worked in the corporate world for more than a decade, and I see myself as an utter failure. I would say I've been struggling a couple of times, although I think I know that I can do well with the tasks given me. But in terms of dealing with people, dealing with politics, that I had the most trouble with. And looking back, that is also the reason kung bakit ako nahirapan ma-identify that there is something wrong, because at the end of it all, I was just shoving it in. I was making sure that people will not notice whether I'm not happy, or I'm not listening, or I'm not interested. And all throughout the years, because of my performance and non-performance, I think I also did well in some aspect of my job. I got promoted a couple of times, but when it comes to dealing with my emotions, with people, that's where I am getting really frustrated. And I know that is one of the reasons why I can say that is a manifestation of having ADHD. I was I think my go-to emotion then when I was a manager or supervisor back then was being angry. Laging galit. So they call me Mr. Intense. If people will ask me questions, I'll be like, what? And I had a team with me. I had a team reporting to me, programmers, of developers, and I think most of them are not happy with the way I treated them. I may be okay with the tasks, but managing them, dealing with them emotionally also more so is I think a challenge for me. And then there were changes in the organization that I was, or we were subjected to, and that made me realize a lot of stuff about myself as well. Being unable to mingle and be as sociable as possible to other people, and I know for a fact that is one of the things as well that my employers were thinking bad about me. I was not as sociable. I was not friendly. I tend to be alone, and I just do work. So most of the time when they talk to me, I seem disinterested. Well, I am not interested. So I think I was just being obvious. But that took a toll in my career, especially during the last years in my job in the BPO industry. So, yeah, so it's a long story, but at least I'm just sharing with you guys how different school was for me, and how different was work for me. And I would say that again, it doesn't mean that you're smart or you're good with the school. It means that you'll do well also in the workplace. A lot of skills are needed for you to be working well with people, and that I know for a fact is are actually symptoms of having this condition looking back. But like I said, I'm a work in progress. I know what I am. I know what are the things that I did before, and no excuses. But I'm working on it definitely, and I know for a fact what are the things that I need to improve on. So I hope you will be doing the same. Okay. So that's enough of my trip down the memory lane. So again, those were the manifestations, at least on my personal journey, my presentations of the condition. And again, different people would have different presentations according to their types, quote unquote. The next part of the program, we will be talking about the academic aspect of ADHD. Okay?